Welcome to Desktop Central. Right, so today's training is all about configuration. So before we get into the configuration training, I would like to get a feedback from you whether you're able to hear my voice and the presentation slide is viewable. Please confirm by commenting on chat so that I can resume. Well, thank you very much. So this is going to be a free training schedule, as you all know, and it's a 7-week series, and we are now on week 5 for configurations. And the below URL, which you could see here on the screen, is going to help you to view the recording of previous trainings. And here we go. So I'm going to be a trainer, and this is going to be for Desktop Central configurations. And here we go with the agenda. So today we're going to see how Desktop Central is going to be configured in terms of installing the agent to manage the machines on LAN, WAN, and for the roaming users, followed by the certain use cases like the USB device management and real-time scenarios at an enterprise level, how it could be solved, and followed by the commonly asked questions from the customers is going to be discussed over here. Right, so Desktop Central supports the following operating system. As you all know, it's for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And a quick brush up about the architecture over here. So Desktop Central is a client-server model. And this model we are going to have in 2 different locations. So Desktop Central is going to be installed on the head office or the data center, followed by which we are going to manage the offices in LAN, WAN, and for the roaming users. And when it comes for the WAN, it's recommended to have a distribution server. And for the mobile users, like the roaming users, it is going to get managed by using the public IP or a fully qualified domain name. So we are going to deal on this case in this today's training. So let's get into that in depth over there. And followed by the architecture, we do have certain ports which needs to be open. And you could see, for example, the Desktop Central server communication between the agent to server, server to agent happens in 80/20 and 83/83. Followed by which we have a list of ports which needs to be open and which is also available in our website to have more insight on it. Well, so let's talk about the 90 minutes refresh policy. So this 90 minutes refresh policy is the agent to server communication. And Desktop Central agent would be contacting the server for every 90 minutes. And that is called as the agent refresh cycle. And we have 2 different things ensured here, like 2 factors are covered over this communication type. Number 1, ensuring that the network is not choked by the agent communication, like bandwidth is not being disturbed due to the agent to server communication. And number 2, the performance of the server is not affected at any instance. So server has an intelligence to ensure that systematic streamlined communication from all agents at the regular interval time. And to be more precise, so we can have a quick example to make it more clear. So let's take a 90 machines environment for the agent server communication. So on the 90 machines environment, 1 computer will reach the Desktop Central server per minute. And similarly, when it comes for the 900 machines environment, it's going to have 10 machines communicating to the server in that per minute or in 1 instance. And when it moves on to the 9,000 machines environment, so 100 machines will reach out the Desktop Central server per minute. So this is to ensure that the bandwidth is not going to get choked on agent server communication. So moving on to the today's agenda. So agent installation process. So we're going to see about the agent installation process. And in order to make it more easy understandable, I'm just going to create a storyline for you, a kind of a scenario. So assume that I'm going to be the administrator of the company, and my company has requested me to take over the Desktop Central in order to manage our LAN, WAN, and the roaming users. And as you could see here, this is going to be with the LAN, WAN, and the roaming user management process. So installing the Desktop Central server onto the client machine is going to be the one-time effort by which we are going to ensure that it's going to talk back to the server in order to carry out all the operations. So I have taken charge in order to manage my network, and let me take you to the product in order to show you how this is going to be feasible. So once we have installed the Desktop Central server, and as you know, like Desktop Central server is a client server model. Similarly, it's a browser compatible application. So you can access the console from anywhere within your network, provided by the host name or the IP address followed by the port details. And similarly, Desktop Central comes bundled with its web server, which is Apache, and the database is going to be the Postgres. And of course, if you would like to migrate the database to your dedicated SQL server, if you have one, certainly you can make it during the time of the installation or after the course of the product usage. Fine. So after installing the application, we recommend you to come to the admin tab, where we could see the scope of management, and this scope of management could be accessed from our top right corner with a quick launch, where we can see the scope of management modules, and we are going to enter into the computers, because scope of management is going to be the gateway of Desktop Central in order to help you to add the computers. So now I'm going to add my domain in order to manage my network. So I'm just going to click on the add domain. It's going to prompt me with the option to select whether I'm going to manage an Active Directory or work group. So Desktop Central is capable of managing multiple Active Directory, multiple work group, and mixed network of Active Directory as well as the work group. Fine. So in order to save time, I'm just going to show you how it has been already configured. So here we go. My domain name followed by the domain credentials. I'm the administrator, and my credential is part of the domain admin account. So I'm providing the domain administrator account over here, followed by the other Active Directory details. The reason to provide the domain administrator account is to help you to read the AD objects. So we are using this account in order to read your AD objects and furnish all the objects, so by which we can choose the machine in order to manage in Desktop Central. Similarly, this account is going to help me to install the agents onto the target machines. And you could see here how it is going to read the Active Directory objects. And if you feel that this account is going to be used for other purposes, you can create a read-only access domain admin account, especially for the Desktop Central, to manage this account. So all we need is Desktop Central agent to be installed. An agent needs to be installed only on the machine, not for the users. So you can choose the whole machines to be installed, else you can expand this count to list all the machines from where you can start adding the machines. You may also enter the machine name manually, separated by commas. And we also have a listing process which helps you to show the categorization. So it's an alphabetical order. It's categorized according to the alphabetical order. You can just go ahead, choose the machines according to your choice from this place. So for example, if I'm just selecting a machine, I can just click OK, it will be added. And going forward, even if you have already added some machine, you may choose this hide managed computers. So this will hide all the managed machines in Desktop Central, and it will show only the unmanaged machines. So by which you can go ahead and you can make use of it. Right. So once it's done, I'm just selecting the machines. I can go ahead, install the agent right away from here. However, I'm just going to show you. So the machines which I have selected would be representing over here. In the Computers tab, you can see the list of machines. I can go ahead, select the machines. I can install the agent. So I'm going to show you 3 different methods of installing agents in the LAN management. So selecting all the machines, I can click on the install agent. So this is going to help me to trigger the agent installation process onto the client machines. So it's going to use the Windows network. It's going to transform all the agent files to the remote office machine, like the remote computers, it's going to save it onto the Windows 10. From there, it's going to invoke the installation of agents silently, and once it's installed successfully, then it would not reboot the machine. Rather, it's going to update the information about the agent is installed or not installed. So it will show the install location, date, and everything. You can just go through the column chooser in order to get more details to be published on the UI. Fine. So this helps me to install the agent successfully by pushing it from the console. Well, so you may end up with some errors during the installation process. In such conditions, you will be having a read knowledge base, and this read knowledge base will take you to the knowledge base in order to show you what is the cause and its finding and how to remediate it. You can find all the details. If still it is not resolved, you are always welcome to reach us for further support. Fine. So this is method 1 to install the agent by pushing it from the console. So the second method of installing the agent is going to be a typical download method. So we can download the Windows local agent, save it to a common share folder from where all clients are accessible. We can take an RDP and install the agent, else we can also export it to the external media like USB sticks or DVDs, and we can install the agent successfully. And the third method of installing agent is all about scrolling down. You'll be able to see the how-to links in which you can refer the Windows group policy installation process. So we have provided a Windows group policy for computer with a startup step. So referring this article would help you to install the agents via group policy for computers. And this would help you to install the agents on the next reboot, so by which your machines are going to get managed. So these are the 3 different methods to install the agent. And in the meanwhile, so during this training process, if you come across with any kind of questions, I would recommend you to please chat with our expert panel who are sitting aside, and they would be glad enough to address your queries. Fine. So let's move on to the remote office management. So we have started managing all the machines in the LAN. So think of it, we have, like in my scenario, I have 2 different remote offices where I need to manage the remote offices. For example, I have a New York remote office as well as a San Francisco remote office. So we have 2 different remote offices. So let me quickly show how this works. So clicking on the add remote office will allow you to choose the appropriate fields to fill in. So let me quickly show you about the remote office which I'm already having it. I'm just modifying the remote office. Fine. So here we go. So I have an office in New York where we have more than 50 machines are managed. So I'm just providing the New York office name, and you can have any kind of naming clause. There is no syntax. Followed by your desktop central server IP address would be shown here. You may also provide, you could see the port details. Along with it, we offer you 2 different mode of communication. So one is going to be the distribution server, which is recommended if you're managing machines more than 10, and the other one is going to be of less than 10. So the objective of this distribution server is to help you to optimize your bandwidth. So let me give a quick logical example to make it more clear. So let's say that we are managing New York office. Say that I'm having 10 machines in New York. And all these 10 machines are going to get communicated to Desktop Central using the direct communication, meaning that all machines will talk to the Desktop Central server separately. So it's going to have a separate communication. However, they all are going to be tagged under one remote office called New York. So now I need to push a 5 MB of patch or an application. So when I'm trying to push this application, this 5 MB of the application is going to get replicated to all those 10 machines separately. So now the bandwidth which I'm going to consume in my office will be 10 into 5. So 50 MB of the bandwidth is going to be consumed. Well, so now I'm just taking you back to the distribution server model. So we have planned to have a distribution server model. And now one machine among the 10 is going to act as a distribution server. Now the same scenario occurs. I'm in need of pushing a 5 MB of patch to my New York remote office. I'm just pushing the 5 MB of patch. Now it replicates only to one machine which is acting as a distribution server. So eventually I'm saving 45 MB of my bandwidth in my network. So that's the objective of having a distribution server. And in order to keep or make a distribution server, we don't need to have a special kind of a software, no prerequisite software hardware is required. A normal client machine, a normal workstation, a desktop, which is residing on the other end of the remote office is capable to act as a distribution server. So all we need to do is specify the details about the distribution server name and its IP address. Since we are going to declare this machine to act as a distribution server, followed by the ports. So these are the ports which needs to be open on the other end of the machine in order to cater all the needs of the agents, because the agents will come and collect the patches, configurations like softwares, scripts from this port. And it's a 2 minutes of default replication interval, so it's going to replicate. So which means it's a handshake time. So for every 2 minutes of time, the desktop central distribution server is going to contact the main server. And followed by, we have a bandwidth throttling. You may choose your choice of bandwidth according to your requirement. So if you feel that this remote office needs only a 512 kbps is enough, yes, you can choose it. But ensure that all the transactions are going to happen between the 512 kbps, so definitely it might take some time. So it's up to your choice. And if you'd like to move on to the secure communication, you can enable the secure communication as well as a proxy. If you're connecting to the internet, just choose the proxy. Followed by which we have a dedicated remote control settings, so we can choose the appropriate settings, and you can refer the help card what is the details for this compression and color quality. And coming down, so we have an ability to push the agents automatically. So I'm just going to select the distribution server, the WAN agent to install it. Before that, I would like to know what machines I'm planning to manage, because I have hundreds of machines in my New York office, whereas I'm planning to manage only 50 among them. So in such condition, I can go ahead, select the machines, whichever machine I want, I can add it. Else, I can also use an example CSV is shown here. I am going to open a notepad, provide all the machines along with the inclusive of the distribution server name, like server machine, add every machines one after another, save it as a CSV and import it, and that's going to reflect the machines over here. Now it's time to install the agent. Fine, so I'm going to install the agent automatically. So it's not going to be a manual process. We're going to add the credential here. I'm just going to specify a credential. Say that I'm just going to name it as New York admin. I'm choosing my domain. I provide the credentials. I'll just save changes. So by which it will help me to install the agent and the distribution server on the remote office using this credential. So ensure that you provide a credential which has an administrative privilege on the remote office. You can make use of it. Else you can also choose the existing account in order to go with it. So this is the method to add all the machines, and you can just click on save. And since I have already created, once you click on modify, you'll be able to see the New York office has created, and I'm managing 4 machines as of now, and the distribution server machine name followed by its IP address, its distribution server status, and the replication interval. So everything is going to be shown here. And even if you'd like to go ahead, choose more options to be visible, you can select the option. So this is all about of creating a distribution server model. So let's go back and see how we can create a remote office for direct communication. So since we already discussed about the direct communication, so here we go. So it's nothing special. You can specify the same remote office name or any information about the remote office as you wish. Coming down, it's going to be the direct communication. So we are not going to make any distribution server here. Similarly, I'm going to choose the same sort of credentials, creating a new credential for here. Say that I'm for San Francisco admin, and I'll be selecting the credentials which is applicable in that remote office, or else a domain admin account across all my remote offices. I can just specify that I'll create it by adding the machine. So by which it helps me to have the remote office with direct communication. Fine. So now my next goal is to create roaming user, because I do have some Salesforce, those who work on the field. So they may be, most probably, like very often, they'll be out of office. So I want to manage even them. Fine. So I'm just going to create a remote office. And since I've already created, I'll show you how this is going to get created. Fine. So provide a username, like a remote office name. I've just mentioned as roaming users. And again, I'm going to provide a public IP or a fully qualified domain name. It's recommended to provide a fully qualified domain name. So provided with a fully qualified domain name, I'm going to NAT the settings in my firewall, so by which when the user who's away from my office network on the public internet or any kind of ISP is going to communicate, they need to reach to my server. So in order to do that, I have to perform a NATing configuration settings. So once I'm done with that, I'm choosing the same direct communication. And here, I may not be able to push the agents because the machines are not in my boundary. It's completely out of my scope. It might be in different locations in different ISPs, so I cannot reach out. So in such conditions, after adding the machines, after I add a machine, for example, so if I'm adding a machine, I need to go create the remote office. Like, for example, I'm going to download this WAN agent. I need to download this WAN agent. It's going to be a simple zip file in the name of the roaming user. I have to extract it. I'll upload it to our FTP or cloud. I'll just derive an instruction in order to help them to install, and the installation procedure is not much of technical. Any laity or layperson can install this agent, and it's a one-time effort. So all we have to do is download this, upload it to your FTP site, share the link to the user, and the user is going to have the instruction in such a way like just click to download the agent, extract it. Once it's extracted, it would be having a list of files. There would be a file called setup.batch. Right click, run it as an administrator mode, and that will show two menus. Menu 1 would be install agent, menu 2 would be exit. So all they have to do is just press 1 and hit enter. Once it's done, the agent is installed successfully. So once the agent is installed successfully, then it's going to communicate all the way carrying the public IP to my firewall. My firewall will route the traffic towards my desktop central server IP, so by which, since then the communication starts and I can manage the machines. And the other advantage of this remote office is once you change the public IP, then all the remote offices will be showing with the public IP. The reason because that is now equipped to manage the machine. Even if the machine is going out of the office, it could be reachable to desktop central server. So we can also manage the machines, whichever is going out of the office, from the network. So this helps us to manage accordingly. And quickly going back to the normal push method. So remember, we were talking about pushing the machines from here, like agents. So this would take a batch process in order to facilitate the agent installation process. So it will take 10 machines at a time, and it will help you to install, so by which it will not again choke your network. So these are the different methods to install the agents on the LAN, WAN, and the remote offices. Fine. So I've successfully installed the agent to my LAN and WAN and to the remote office, the roaming users, and I'm just going to configure IP scope. So let me talk about IP scope. So the IP scope is not a mandatory field. You may just configure according to your choice, but the advantage of the IP scope is all your remote offices, once you create it, would be shown up here. You can just choose the remote office. You can provide the IP ranges. The benefit of this IP ranges is, let me talk here. So say that I'm having a user in New York who's going to visit San Francisco for a business requirement. There are no IP ranges here. When a machine moves from New York, remember the New York, he's under the distribution server model. So when the machine is coming out of the New York office, the machine is completely going to be isolated. It will not have any contact to desktop central because it's not even a roaming user. So in such conditions, what happens is when the machine rejoins the New York, it is going to get all the configurations. So when we set up this as a IP range, a machine which is moving from New York to San Francisco, it will fall under this IP range and it will be part of this San Francisco office. So whatever configuration I push to all of my domain or for the remote offices will get applied to this machine, and this machine will be completely equipped with all patches. It's not prone for any vulnerabilities. So that's the advantage. And even in future, if you're having any machines needs to be reported to New York or San Francisco for any offices as you wish here, you can just assign an IP based upon this range and install the agent that will automatically report to this location. So that's the benefit of the IP scope. So moving across to the scope of management policy here. A scope of management policy helps you to automatically add machines and install the agent. Remember, we were pushing the agents manually, and what happens if the company is going to procure? In my condition, we are managing 100 machines, and once all the 100 machines are managed and it's working as expected, so my company decided to procure another 10 machines by this week. So in such condition, when I get new machines coming inside, I don't want to go add manually the agent and install it. I just want to make this as an automated process. So I want to choose scope of management policy, and this policy helps me to enhance the agent installation process. So all I need to do is provide my email address, choosing my domain or OU where I want to apply the operation. I'm choosing the whole domain, as you could see. And Desktop Central is going to synchronize with Active Directory for every day. So I'm just specifying a time when I want to make it happen, followed by the two features. Number one, so when a new machine comes inside the Active Directory for the very first time, Desktop Central synchronize and identifies the machines, and it will notify me, so by which I can go ahead, decide whether this machine needs to be managed or not. And if anyone wants to manage all the machine which comes inside the network for the very first time, yes, you can go ahead with this agent installation process. So this helps you to automatically install the agent and notifies you. Similarly, according to Desktop Central, it's going to be the license model is based upon number of machines. So if any machine which has been removed from the Active Directory would be still managed in Desktop Central may consume the license. In such conditions, if you configure this feature set of notify me and delete the computers, so it'll automatically remove the machine from the managed list of Desktop Central, and that relaxes the license for you, and that license could be utilized in future when you're planning to add any new machine. Similarly, in case of any machine which is not in contact Desktop Central server for X number of days, you'll be getting the notification. So this allows you to identify, and you can start your investigation to find the reason why the machine is not in contact. So this would help you to manage the machines in future automatically. Finally, coming down to the settings. So the settings we could see of retrying the agent installation process, which is similar to the push method. Remember, we're talking about of pushing the agents from the console. So when we are pushing the agents from the console, we may not be sure that all the machines are going to be up on the network. Some machine may be down, some machine may be having some network challenges, and some machines might be taken by the user. So at the time when I'm pushing the agents, some machines may not get the agent installed successfully, and I cannot go back to track those machines manually and do the installation, which is an unproductive activity for me. So Desktop Central facilitates the option of providing you the automatic agent installation. So I can choose the frequency, provide my email address. So this keeps on checking, and it retries the agent installation process and updates me accordingly. So these are the three different methods to manage the machines. And likewise, I have successfully created my domain, added the remote office, installed the agents based upon the choice, and configured the IP scope of management policy, and I'm all set to go with the Desktop Central management. And going forward, even if you'd like to go for imaging process, like you already have an image, so your agent installation is going to be imaging. You create an image and you deploy it. Yes, we have a solution for the imaging. We have a script for that. So that script will help you to identify the machine and its name, and it will not replicate the same machine over here. For instance, if you're having a machine here, you're just you want to use the same machine by reimaging it for some other reasons, or like an operating system crash or any other infection. So you want to reimage and bring back to the managed list. You may use the script, which is available in Mirror online. So that script may help you to manage the machines automatically. Fine. So this is all about Desktop Central configurations with the agent installation procedures. And to quickly summarize, so we have seen about the different methods of installing the agents. And if you have any questions, I would recommend you to please go ahead, raise it in the chat panel. Right. So moving across to the next module of configurations. So the configurations are similar to the Windows group policies, which we have in Desktop Central. So we're going to see how this is going to happen. And I've taken a real-time scenario of how to configure a printer to a new user and for a department, and what is the baseline configuration, which we can do that whoever steps into the company, and also what kind of templates is going to help us to manage our in-time needs. So let's go back to the product here. So I'm just taking you to the configurations here. So you could see the configurations, and all the configurations which we do is going to be seen here, and I'll explain you about the status later on. So here we go with the configuration. I'll just quickly touch base about the important configurations because it's a more vast chapter, and you can go through each configurations at your leisure to play with it benefits. So for example, we have display, and these are all the Windows configuration, and most of the configuration you could see with the user and computer, wherever you can see the user and computer. So it means that this configuration would help to manage a user and even the computer. So the users will be applied using the user profiles, and the computers will be done with the system account. So when it is a user profile, when I'm creating a configuration for a user, it's going to be applied only for that specific user, and that too only if the user is logged in. And that policy is going to be applied for that user across the domain. And the agent has an intelligence, like Desktop Central agent has an intelligence. So this will ensure that this policy is applied to this user wherever the user is logging in. For example, I'm applying this display user policy in order to have a common wallpaper and screensaver across all of my users. When I'm doing this process, say that I'm just doing it for a user called John, and now the user is sitting in machine A. After I apply this configuration, when the user is logging out and logging into machine B, during the logon process, agent has an intelligence to check all the configurations what is applied to the John, and again the same configuration will be applied to the machine B as well. So wherever John is going to log in, John is going to see the same wallpaper and screensaver. Not only that, any configuration which represents the user is going to be applicable for that. Fine. So we have a display configuration, and we have a registry configuration. For any kind of registry tweaks you would like to perform, yes, you can do that. We have a services configuration which can help you to start, stop, disable, enable the services, the Wi-Fi configuration, a browser configuration which helps you to restrict the browser from accessing certain websites and creating a common home page, search page, and the download page. And we have a custom script. You can go ahead, execute the scripts according to your choice. It's a very robust custom script process. We can go add the scripts. So whatever scripts you have, you can add it to the repository. So you don't need to go search, browse, and collect the scripts and add it here. So we have a script repository provided here. All you have to do is any script you'd like to apply, like a VB script or a batch file, a PowerShell, you can browse, add it, provide the details, and even if you'd like to share the script to us, it would be appreciated. So we can make use of the script for other users as well, which means it will be added to the templates, so by which you can make use of the template. And here we go. So we have a templates here. So the templates, we are covering approximately 100 plus templates here. So most of the scripts are created, and it has been created from our side as well as from the customers' contributions. You can go ahead, choose any kind of script. You can run a quick search of anything you want to do that, for example, of renaming it. So I'm just having a rename of admin account. So I can just add to the repository. It will automatically add it to the repository. You can see here, now it's added. So when I go to the repository, I could see this. I can go ahead, create a user configuration, computer configuration, and deploy it. So it's a value-added service in Desktop Central. Similarly, we have other configurations of file folder operation, which helps you to copy, rename, move, and delete any files and folders to any of the machines in the domain. And we also have a user policy. So you can just go ahead, you can restrict the users in terms of starting from Desktop Central to control panel to disable and enable certain activities. Fine. So just coming back to our original case. So my requirement is to install a printer for one of my user who joins the company. So I'm just going to use this IP printer for the user. I can go ahead, I can make use of it. Since I've already created a configuration, I just want to make use of it to save our time. I'm just going over here, look on the modification. So it's a flow printer, a new user who has joined in a company, and so we have created a flow printer. So we have different floors. So the user has joined on the different floor, like each floor has consist of different departments. So having it in mind, I'll just create a floor printer configuration. So I'll just create it, specify the DNS name of the printer or the IP of the printer, specify the printer display name, how it should be displayed, and even if it is already provided, any printer has been already added to the machine, we can use overwrite if printer already exists, so it will get overwritten. And you can choose the protocols, and it's going to use RAW, and we are having the port number is 9100 in which we are running it, and the port name is IP. And this is going to be a shared network printer. So I'm just using, so this is an IP printer, and I'm going to use this IP printer in order to install to my user. For that, I need the drivers, and here we go with the driver. So either I can provide a print server location, or I can browse any of the machine in which this printer is already installed, so I can point to that machine, so by which it uses the drivers from that machine or from the print server. So I just provided a print server. And you want to select this as a default printer. Yes, we can make it as a default printer. For example, if the printer is on the different domain, so this domain user may not be able to access, so I can use the option of providing the credential here. Or if the user does not have a permission to access the print server, yes, I can provide the username and credentials, and I can make use of it. And similarly, it's not only of a single printer, I can also add more printers for the user in order to manage a common and public printer. So this printer is liable for the third floor. So what happens if the user is going to the different floor or to the different location? I can use another printer, which is a common printer for all, and I can add it to them. Right, so coming down, so as already mentioned, it's going to reflect all your target locations, starting from the local office to all your remote offices and all the managed domains. However, we have created a separate location, like a third floor. I'm just added to the third floor. By using this filter icon, I would be getting the option to use the split of for whom I need to assign. I can choose any site, OU, group. Since it's a user configuration, I can choose the user. And we also have an option of creating user custom group, IP address, IP range, processor architecture like 3264-bit, or even I can deploy to any operating system based upon its OS level, and even the machine types. So I can even choose the domain machine type. So however, it's a user, so I'm just choosing my username is going to be Mark, and so here we go. I'm selecting it to the Mark, and I'm just coming down. Since it's a printer configurations, in case if the user is making some changes on it, so the user has a admin privilege, I can make this configuration to apply it on every logon. So remember, I was talking about a user configuration. At every logon, the agent has an intelligence to talk or check with a desktop central server about the applied configuration. So based on that, it's going to reapply the configuration again onto this target machine in order to make effect the configuration. And in case if it is getting failed, then we have an option, a probability of 10 chances to make things work based upon your choice, to retry the configurations. And if I want to get the notification, like if I want to get the status of this task, whether it's succeeded, failed, whatever it is, I can just make use of this and provide it with the notifications. And I can deploy it. So based on the deployment on the agent, like once the user is logged onto the machine, it will get applied. And if I don't want to keep this now, I can just save it as a draft. So I can make use of this in my future. And so it's just canceling it. And here we go. So once I did the job, it's going to show the details of the job, and it's going to show me even the status of the machine, like what is the status. So you could see here different status. Suspend. Suspend is nothing but when I created a configuration, deployed it to the target machines, for some other reason I just want to pull back, we cannot pull back the configuration. How we can suspend it? So I can choose the suspend option. And for example, you could see here suspend option. So when I click on the suspend, the configuration will be suspended on the target machines which did not come and pick the task. Again, I can go ahead and resume after making some changes. And ready to execute. So ready to execute is the beginning of the configuration. As soon as we create a configuration and deploy to the target machines, it will show the ready to execute, and next move would be executed. It will show either executed or executed failed or in progress failed. So let me explain about these status. So executed resembles it's a successful installation on the target machine, and you can see here about the execution status, it succeeded. So the operation is completed successfully. So what happens if it is getting executed failed? So executed failed is nothing but I have deployed multiple targets, and during the targets, one machine got executed successfully, the other machine failed. So it shows that executed failed, which means it will not print the status as executed. It will print the status as executed only if all the machines, all the target machines are getting applied with the configuration. If any one is getting failed, then you'd be able to see the fail. And similarly to the in progress. So in progress is nothing but I've just deployed to multiple target machines. Once it's installed in one machine and moves on to the other machine to install the or apply this configuration or install any kind of patches or softwares, it will show it as in progress, which means the process is in progress. Similarly, in case during the in progress process, if the previous machine was failed, it will show like in progress failed. And this shows that the previous machine got succeeded. It's moving on to the next machine to install the or apply the configuration. And similarly, you have the health card. So whatever we discussed is going to be shown over here. You can see that. And the draft download in progress, draft download failed is applicable only for the patches. At the time when it is getting downloading the patches, it will, in case of any failure occurs, you may be encountering this error message. And this is going to be during the download is in progress. So that's about the option. Fine. So my next goal on the configuration is all about of creating a configuration for my department. So I'm just going to create a configuration for my department, and you can see here, and this is going to be the department, not for the user. So department is all the machines in the department. So I'm just going to configure this by referring you. So this is an office printer, which is going to be applied for machines. You can see here it's for machines. So it's already applied and it has succeeded on the target machines. So I'm going to make use of the same configuration for my all machines in the department. So how come it's possible? I'm going to use this option of save as new. Save as new is nothing but it's a kind of cloning of the configuration. See, if I want to create the same kind of configuration, I have to create from the scratch, configure it by filling all the details, choosing the target and deploy. So it's just going to be a time consumption. So if I've already created a configuration, I want to make use of the same configuration. Yes, I can use the same configuration. I can make use of this by selecting without target. So it will create a new configuration with 0 targets. In case if I want to retry it on the failed targets, yes, I can create another configuration only choosing the failed targets, whereas the machines did not get installed. And with all targets is again, it will create targets. All the targets will be created and it will be deployed. And with yet to apply target. So whichever says as yet to apply in the sense the configuration did not reach the target machines. So only on those targets I'm going to deploy it. So for example, I'm just choosing this configuration as a successful configuration. I'm just choosing it for my department. So I can go ahead, click on the without target. You can see here, it creates it. Coming down, I can choose my domain. And I'm just going down here and I can see here, once I choose the domain, the whole domain, the domain consists of the LAN, WAN, and the roaming user. And when it consists of the roaming users, the distribution server in the remote office. So it represents that all the configurations will get replicated to the distribution server and the remote office. That's what it's given here, just for your understanding. Fine. So I've just created for the department, and here we go. I'm just having this department. I'm selecting for the machines in the department. And even if I just don't want to use for any specific machine, because I have one machine, which is the test machine where I don't want to apply this configuration, yes, I can also exclude the configuration. So by which we have successfully created a configuration for a user and for a computer as well as a department. So now let's move on to the next way, like baseline configuration. We are going to deal with the baseline configuration. So what is a baseline configuration? So once a user comes inside, we want to set up certain basic attributes in the machine, like a Wi-Fi, a screensaver, IP printer, a browser setting. So these are the settings which I want to make it, so by which it should be applied for each and every user who comes inside the domain. So likewise, we are going to create a baseline configuration, and that is going to be done with the collection module. So I've already created a baseline configuration. I'm just going to modify and show you how this is going to be done. And similarly, you can go and use the baseline from the collection. So the collection is nothing but, remember, we're talking about of a single configuration. We are creating a one task for one configuration, but here we are going to add multiple configuration in one single task. You can make use it for the user as well as the computer. So I'm just going to show you how it looks by modifying it. So I'm just going to modify the task. So here we go. So in my company, we have a baseline configuration set with a common wallpaper, a browser setting, a drive mapping, Wi-Fi, and these are the settings which we are going to do that. So we can select the settings. As you could see here, it's a one single task with multiple configurations. I'm going to choose display, where I can select what wallpaper page I want to have. It's a new wallpaper. I can select the file. I can choose it from my local drive or using the HTTP, which is nothing but it will get added to the file. Like I can choose the file, I can add it, or I can also select from the network share path. And I can position it according to my choice. And I can also permit the users to modify or not. This is going to be the display. And when I move on to the next, it's going to show me the drive mapping. So I'm just mapping a drive. It's a common drive for all the users in order to store or save their records. And I can keep it as a common data folder. And moving over here, it's a browser setting. So I make my browser, so whichever browser they're using, so we don't have any restrictions, so they can use any browser, but either any browser they're using, I just want to keep a common home page. Whenever they open any of these browsers there, it's going to open with a common home page, a search engine, as well as the download directory, and the trusted sites and restricted sites. I don't want my users to access the following sites, so I can make changes. And I can also perform other activities in here, like clearing the cache and other things. And followed by which it's going to be the Wi-Fi. So we have a corporate Wi-Fi profile, and I'm just going to add this profile, so by which only this profile is going to reflect on the machine to add. So doing all those activities, it's now moving on to the target machine, where I want to define this to the target, and finally I can finish the task, so by which I can achieve it successfully. So the common collection is done accordingly. Now we are moving on to the templates. So what is meant by templates and how this could be used? So my next activity is going to be securing my desktop for ISO audit. So I just want to auto-lock my PCs in case of according to the desktop policy. I don't need to go create a configuration from here. We have a set of configurations here. You can see here 70 plus configurations are shown here. You can make use of it. And the type will be represent whether it's applicable for user or for computer. You can get these configurations added and which could be used. Everything is completely configured, predefined. So nothing needs to be changed. For example, I just want to change my local admin password. Yes, I can go create it. I don't need to do anything because everything is predefined. All I have to do is just provide the new password, confirm it, and I can target to the target machines. I mean, I can define to the target machines and I can perform this activity automatically. So that's about the template-based configuration. So in my need now, in order to perform a security audit in my company, so I need to auto-lock all my PCs. So I'm just going to create a configuration here. And I can provide the configuration as desktop security. Coming down, I can comment on what is this all about with the descriptions, selecting the time limit. So this is the default setup, but I don't want to do the default setup of 60 minutes because according to my desktop policy, I need to lock the machines by 30 minutes. And I can modify it, you can see here. Coming down, I can choose my targets as usual to whom I want to apply. Since it's going to be a security policy. I'm just doing it across the domain. I can apply this configuration at every logon, even if the user is going and changing something else. And I can also retry this information like this configuration on all the fail machines. I'll be notified by selecting this option, and I can just click on deploy. So this will be deployed. Else I can save it as a draft and I can cancel it. So likewise, we can make use of this configuration. So this is all about the configurations. And in this configuration module, you could see about created by me. So which is, I've logged into my account and I've created whatever configuration I created is going to be shown here. If you want to see the other users who have created in Desktop Central, you can choose created by all, and that's going to reflect all the groups. And moreover, we also have an easy way of configurations here based upon the configuration types. So you can choose any of the configuration. For example, I just want to go only for IP printer. How many IP printer configuration I've made? Yes, I can see that. And I can also see it for the Mac and Windows. So we also have a Mac-based configurations and the Linux-based configurations, which could be used for the customers, those who use the different domain. Fine. So by which we are coming into the configuration part, and now we are moving on to the next module. Before that, if you have any questions on this module, please raise it. We would be glad enough to answer. Well, so now let's move on to the USB device management, and this is going to help us to handle 3 activities like blocking the USB in all the machines, allowing to only a specific group or user, and to ensure that the encrypted devices are managed. So I'm just taking you back to the product. Again, we are going to deal this with the configurations. I want to take you to the secure USB. So in secure USB, I'm just going to select computer USB, specify the configuration name, and you could see a list of device types. So a USB restriction is going to be a common port. A USB is a one common terminal in which different kind of devices are going to be plugged in. So there is no point of blocking the whole USB port. So in such conditions, Desktop Central has come up with a feature of defining the different device types to help the customers to disable only their desired device type. For example, it's going to be a disk drive. So we have a lot of device types like a mouse, CD-ROM, and portable devices, which will be comprised with all your mobile phones, digital cameras, and the portable media players and imaging devices like cameras and scanners. So likewise, you have a lot of things. And now our requirement is to block this for the specific machines. So I'm having an ISO audit in which one of the audit requirement is to block the unauthorized access of the disk drives. So I'm just choosing this disk drive and I'm selecting to all of my domain. Fine. And now none of the machines in my domain is able to access the USB sticks, external hard drive, or virtual drives, including my roaming users who are away from my office. So nobody can access any of the drives. So it's completely blocked. Fine. So, but now as an administrator, I have some responsibility of taking some backup from my critical server, which needs to be taken a backup on every day, like once in a week. I'm sorry. So in such conditions, I need to take a backup, and I'm going to take backup using my Seagate 4 TB hard drive. So I want me to do the job, but according to the current situation, I may not be able to use that because it's a complete overall a domain policy which has been applied to restrict the USB devices. So I'm just going to the exclude device option, and you do have a device instance ID. I want to provide a device instance ID, which is nothing but the hardware ID. In order to know how to provide, how to fetch that device details, please click on the learn more, and here we have shown you how to fetch the device instance ID from the device manager. So I'm going to provide the device instance ID here, and once it's provided, I'm just going to add, so that it's going to get added. And by the way, my device is going to be used across the whole domain for my backup purpose. In case if the company is providing a specific vendor-based devices, for example, USB stick for all the users to make use of it, yes, we can even exclude that device. And we also have one condition of allowing the encrypted devices. Yes, we can also allow all the encrypted devices by adding the device instances, we can allow that alone. Fine. So now coming down to the exclusion. Now my manager has requested me to provide some exclusions for them. So I'm just going to the custom group. I'm selecting my managers. So all of my managers can access any kind of device, not only the disk drive, they can access anything. And of course, they can also use the USB stick and external hard drive or virtual drives. So it could be used for them. And I can go ahead, I can apply this configuration at every startup because this is a registry tweak. So the user who changes the settings will get applied again on the next reboot. And I can also retry the configuration and I can also notify it for me. I can just deploy to that. It will deploy based upon the agent to agent server communication. And if I provide deploy immediately, this helps me to deploy it immediately. And this happens with the help of a notification server port, which should be listened by all the target users. And notification server will contact the agents to invoke the process. So they come and contact Desktop Central immediately instead of 90 minutes. So the deploy immediately would be take place swift compared to the normal deploy operation. Right. So likewise, we have successfully done with the exclusion part, and the rest of the users may not be able to use it. So this I've just done for my ISO audit. So once my audit is completed, I want to revert everything back to square one. So I don't want to go back, modify the configuration, do things. It's very simple. I can just revoke every settings back to square one in one single click, by which I can revert it back. So this is the successful configuration policy which we have achieved. So we have covered all the settings over here. So we have completed with blocking a USB in all the machines, like the whole domain, and we have excluded the managers, and we also excluded the encrypted devices. So if you have any questions over here, please go ahead, raise it. We are moving on to the next use cases on an enterprise level. So scenarios and solutions, fine. So scenario number one, so we rely completely on Desktop Central for our system management, and we cannot afford downtime. So what has to be done in order to prevent the downtime of Desktop Central, since Desktop Central is going to be a one common server which is going to help you to manage all the machines across the different domains. So to make use of it, we have a failover server concept, and this is the architecture what you see here. So this helps you to manage a contemporary Desktop Central server, which is going to have concurrently running on the other end in the same domain. So one machine is going to act as a primary, the other one is going to act as a secondary, and the requirement is going to be all your shares, the patch store, a software repository, as well as your database, like MS SQL, it should be in the different location. So we're going to point it to that location, and all the clients will be managed here. All the data which is getting manipulated on these clients is going to be stored here, as you know. So if any one server is getting down or failed, the other server will trip and it will take over the process, and it will be acting as a primary server. And once we are done with the primary server is rectified, and then it will act as a primary, and this will go up to the secondary server. So this is going to be a failover server architecture, and this could be utilized in Desktop Central with a separate license model. Scenario 2. We have thousands of configuration in Desktop Central, and it has become unmanageable. Is there a way out? Yes, of course. So going back to the product here in the configurations. So remember, I was referring you earlier. So we have a lot of configuration here. I just want to quickly check how to make use of it. So I can go ahead, I can use this configurations based on that. So if it is a display, I can select the display, I can see the configuration. Apart from this, in terms of reporting, so we have a reports for you. You can make use of the configuration reports based upon any configuration which you have applied for the user, for the machine, or for the type. You can get those reports accordingly. You can see the reports, and you can also click and you can get the details. You can export it to the PDF, else you can see the overall high-level information about what are the configuration by types you have applied, and you can export it to PDF, CSV, XLS for your audit purpose. Moving on to the third scenario. Some of our computers go unmanaged quite often. Is there a way to fix this? So this is going to help you to manage the machines. Like this refers to users who make some changes to the agent settings by which their machines will go unmanaged, where you may not be able to manage the machine for any kind of your activities. So in such conditions, please go to the admin tab, go to the agent settings. So we have two different options. So this is applicable only for Windows and especially for the admin privileges. So the administrator of the machine, if any user has an admin privilege, may have an option to uninstall applications. So they may also uninstall agent, desktop central agent. So in such condition, you can select uninstall agent from control panel, where they cannot see the uninstall option, rather they can see the install details. And similarly, even if the uninstallation is not possible, they can also go on disable the service from the services, which is near to the uninstallation. So we can even restrict them not to make any changes from the agent service and the services. Fine. So moving on to the scenario 4, make sure your users recognize the application, which means, so in Desktop Central, we have the agents. The agent tray icon is going to be like Desktop Central's company logo. So we have an option to make change of the logo for both Desktop Central Server as well as agent. So that is possible by going to the admin tab. You have a rebranding option. The rebranding will allow you to change the banner of the Desktop Central, which will be represented over here on the top left corner, and also the company logo. You can change the agent logo here based upon the given parameters. And that is what here it's shown, and you can see here. So this is the change of a logo, and let's see how it looks like. So here we go. So any kind of prompts and notifications is provided from the or triggered from Desktop Central. It will be shown on the agent side with your own company logo. Scenario 5, all of our users should be able to easily access our common shared folders for clipboards and design files. How can I achieve this? So we do have the configurations as we already discussed. So we have a drive mapping. You can just use the drive mapping for all of the users to access the shared folders, and you can select the different drive letters. You can make use of it, and you may also remove a drive name based upon this. Scenario 6, I want Desktop Central to use the available system resources effectively for improved performance. What should I do? So meaning that you just want to provide a system resource management by which it's going to utilize only that to make a performance according to the need base. So we can go ahead and you can see under the database option, you can just DB optimization. So you can choose your optimization percentage, and that's going to reflect based upon the memory what you have. So scenario 7, I need to get information about an asset even when I'm away from my desk. Is this possible? Yes, definitely it's possible. So when you're away from your office, say that you are on a vacation and your wife told that do not bring any kind of laptops or computers. So you're going without any kind of gadgets. So you're just going to spend your vacation with the family. And when you're away from office, obviously, since you're an IT guy, you're just like a cop. You should be always in undercover. So you need to know what happens in the office. At that point of time, you may not have anything in your hand to do that, but we still provide you out of box with an option of a mobile app. So you can go here. So if you're having any of these smartphones, obviously you should be having it. So you can make use of this in order to achieve it. And let's see how this could be. So you're going to install the app and just scan the QR code, and that allows you to show up the screen. So what you see is going to be just a preliminary screenshot of what you're going to see that. So it's going to offer you the patch management summary, the remote control, and you can even take control of any machines if it is going to be an immediate assistance to be provided from you. And you can also see all those details in your hand, like in your phone, smartphones. Well, so let's move on to the scenario 8. I want to restrict a technician to only access asset data. How can I do this? Yes, of course, we can make use of it by going to the admin tab. You have a user administration, which is called as a role-based administration. So if you have an additional license, so by default, the product comes with one technician license. If you purchase additional technician license, you can add a user. You can manage that user. You can allow that users to manage Desktop Central login with a local authentication, or you can also map it to the AD in case if the person is part of your domain. Choose the username, and you can also assign the user with a predefined role. For example, an IT asset manager. So he's liable for all kind of IT asset manager. When the user logs in, the user could see only the inventory, home, and support, not the rest of the tabs. However, you may also allow the users to access all the machines, or a static unique group, which is nothing but a custom group which we can create from here by selecting a specific set of machines, and this will reflect under the static unique group. Or else if you want to allow them to manage a certain remote offices, yes, we can provide. So this is going to allow them to manage. And similarly, if you're not interested with this IT asset manager, you can create your own roles by providing it like an IT technician or anything else, and you can configure it for both desktops and the mobile devices. So finally, we are going to the scenario 9. Due to some business reasons, we are unable to host desktop central server in our own network. Is there any alternate solution? Fine. So if you're not intent to use the on-premise of desktop central, you would like to have it on the hosted solution. Yes, we offer two different options to choose according to your choice. One is from the Amazon AWS Marketplace, and the other one is going to be Microsoft Azure. So you may use this according to your choice. And in AWS, we also have an instance of desktop central, so you can just go ahead and start using it from the fly. Right. So finally, we're coming to the commonly asked questions. And the first question, does desktop central allow you to block USB devices for particular IP range? Certainly, we can block it to the particular IP range, as we already discussed in the secure USB port. So here we go. You can see all the targets which is going to use the secure USB. For example, I'm just showing it here. So we have the target with a specific IP range. So can website security certificates be deployed to workstations and to multiple browsers? Yes, if you'd like to go with more encryption on all kind of your activities, yes, of course, you can just import your SSL certificate and you can start manage accordingly. Some keyboards and monitors have embedded USB ports. Will those ports also be blocked despite having the keyboard and mouse options excluded from the block? Fine. So if the keyboard and mouse is having a USB port, even that is going to be considered to be a mass storage device. And when you go down to the product, you have the secure USB policy, in which you can go ahead and you can define a specific device types, and these device types is applicable even for a monitor embedded USB or it's a keyboard embedded USB. So definitely you can achieve your requirement. Can the 90 minutes refresh policy be changed? Fine, it's an interesting question, but we always recommend to keep it in 90 minutes in order to serve the complete network without any kind of a network or bandwidth choke. So this is going to help you to manage everything in a seamless way. And since you need this 90 minutes, so the reason to move this 90 minutes to policy to even a lesser minute of changes in order to apply the configuration, we have a deploy immediately function. So that deploy immediately would satisfy you to install or apply or perform any kind of configurations according to your choice. So finally, with questions, when does a configuration gets deleted? Is it based on the status of the configuration? Fine. So when you create a configuration, the configuration is going to reside over here for the purpose of your reporting, and it's going to be always in the data. So when you're having all the configurations created, if you're not interested to have a configuration, you may select the configuration and you can just move to the trash. You can do it manually, and even if you want to perform it automatically, you can choose move configuration to trash if it is already unused for 30 days. So if a configuration is applied or not applied, if it is for 30 days, it will be automatically moved. From the trash, you can go ahead and you can also restore that to the back again to the configurations, or you may also delete or you can empty the trash. Fine. So if you configure a set of restricted size in the collection wizard but don't select a web browser, does the restriction apply to their default web browser or all the web browsers? So that's going to be applied only for the default web browser. Is it required to move the distribution server to edge or public communication? Fine. So if you have a requirement of all of your users, like in a specific remote office, you have that user is moving, very often they are going out of office. Yes, we can define it accordingly. So as you could see here, we have a the distribution server model. We provide you an option with a fully qualified domain name. So if you make this as a fully qualified domain name, so your distribution server is going to be in the edge, which will be capable to serve the users who are inside the office and outside the office of the same distribution server remote office. Fine, so we have come to the end of the configuration training, and trust the training will have been helpful for you to know the insight of desktop central configurations and other settings. So if you are happy with this, you may just go ahead, rate us on a scale 1 to 5, where the 5 is going to be the best. And you may also spread a word by tagging us in all kind of your social medias. And about the next training is going to happen on November 8th of next Wednesday on these 2 different time zones. So I would invite you for this training in order to get more insight about how to achieve a lot of things by integrating Desktop Central with Service++. So stay tuned for this. And once again, thank you very much for all your active participation. So trust the training was helpful. And please go ahead, raise your queries in the chat panel if you have something in your mind. And once again, thanks for your active participation. You all have a great day. Take care.